Whoa, LTC is doing pretty well, guys. For whatever reason, it's up 14% in the day. So I don't know if there's some sort of LTC related news. Perhaps it's inclusion in the possibility of an ETF or whatever. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, actually. XRP ETFs and how the delay or the push forward of the ETF approvals, especially the one in the bucket that was first approved and then paused, makes a lot more sense, and why I'm actually happy it happened. I'll talk about it in a minute. But let's look at the general market at the moment. Lots of greens today. ETC, LTC, just it's Ethereum Classic, Litecoin. These old school coins are doing well today for whatever reason. Even Polygon Matic seems to have come to life all of a sudden. So something is happening. Maybe some of the old school whales are shaking things a little bit. But again, we're still down this week. Only a handful of coins have pulled out of the red. But XRP looking okay, holding nicely over $3 after the dip that we had just yesterday or 2 days ago, which I capitalized on, of course. Not financial advice, do your own research. I've also done a little bit of dollar cost averaging this morning. I usually do it before I even go to record a video, just to make sure that that gets done. It's a usual amount, just accumulating, hoping for the glory days. Anyway, so XRP, like many other coins, is going to benefit from the SEC's new clarification stance. The SEC's Project Crypto aims to put America back at the center of digital finance. So Paul Atkins apparently has broken away from SEC tradition of persecuting crypto and is more forward-leaning and has a can-do attitude and has actually got a plan for a change. Imagine that, something that Gary Gensler refused to do. I know some people are hating on Atkins at the moment because he is putting in the work. He's actually trying to get things done once and for all and give us regulations so we can go ahead and do things with confidence, right? He gave a speech at the end of July that I actually missed that speech. I didn't listen to it, but I've since gone back and read through the transcript. And Burston Research called the plan game-changing, arguing it could draw blockchain companies back to the United States and erode the moat protecting traditional capital markets from digital competition. So basically, this plan is going to get those companies that have basically left and gone to the likes of Dubai and Portugal, because they have favorable regulations and just a favorable environment for crypto innovation. Now, one problem in the United States, apart from just the lack of regulations and the political condition that was present up until now, is that the banks had this moat of protection that was mentioned in this article that protects the establishment, and they use this power to go after individuals and companies to try and stifle innovation. So a company would rise and start to do well effectively, and out of nowhere would come a bunch of banks, blocking them, effectively putting sanctions on individuals and companies within the United States to stifle their progress and make Bitcoin and whatever crypto sound like something that is, often seen as something illegal. And by the way, I'm going to talk about something that Trump is doing that is going to absolutely obliterate that power that they have. So that in a minute. If you want to read this speech, I'm going to leave it in the description section, a link to this, American Leadership in the Digital Finance Revolution. It's not a long speech to read. It's actually quite interesting and insightful. And once you've read this, you would understand why they had to postpone or pause the XRP bucket ETFs. I call it the XRP bucket ETFs because for me, it's the most important token in that bucket. But it consists of mainly other tokens, Bitcoin, Ethereum, I believe was Solana, and was it Pepe Coin or something like that? I can't even remember what the bucket was. It had one outlier in there that people didn't expect to be there. Some kind of meme coin it was, something that I can't remember right now. But basically, it does something that we've always wanted, which is provide, says it's going to provide clarification, in what is, what it does is it distinguishes between commodities, stable coins, collectibles, and tokenized securities. Very clear categories, commodities, etc. So like Bitcoin, I'll say is a commodity. Stable coins, obviously, ROUSD. Collectibles, obviously, those would be NFTs and the like. And tokenized securities would probably be, some of these real world assets and securities that are tokenized on blockchains like the Ondo Finance and XRP Ledger blockchains, right? So that is fantastic. Clear regulations coming in to the United States. And another thing that is quite crucial with this plan is that it allows brokers and providers to provide digital asset services under the same license as traditional licenses. So this actually is good for the banks as well, because it would open the gates for some establishment banks that have been wanting actually to do crypto, to offer crypto under existing licenses. Okay, so they don't have to jump through hoops to try and figure out new licenses for crypto. And this is going to usher in a new wave of adoption, the likes of which we've never seen before, to quote one of Trump's favorite expressions, right? So this is going to bring in a lot of mass adoption. Joe Blogs and Jane Doe on the street are going to be able to walk into their brick and mortar bank and deal with crypto, right? So that's going to be amazing when that happens. Those of us that have preempted all of this are going to be, of course, the top beneficiaries, as the price of crypto is going to begin to skyrocket when the time comes. Now, this is a big one, guys. This is massive. Almost breaking news, but probably a lot of you have already seen this. Trump plans executive order on banks discriminating against crypto firms. Gosh, we need that over here in the UK like crazy, because I myself have been victim of this discrimination because of crypto. I'm not a famous person by any stretch of the imagination, but I've definitely been hit by one of those things that happen, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, when specific people are targeted and sort of gate-kept from crypto, or unbanked, so to say, or disbanked. I don't know what the terminology is. So the Trump administration is reportedly preparing an executive order that could impose stringent penalties on banks accused of closing accounts based on political beliefs or involvement in crypto. Now, we all remember the debanking of certain political figures, or certain figures with political expressions. Just because someone has a different political belief to you, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't offer them. They shouldn't have credit or have the ability to bank in a free society. Yes, we can hate these people. Those are our personal opinions, but we cannot then withdraw their human rights from them, right? We've got to be able to live in a society where people have different opinions and, live and let live. And the United States, in a way, has been a shining light of this stuff for a while, okay? And the rest of the world emulates this. But in relatively recent times, we've seen a turn away from this principle that's taken, decades to build. So it's very important for these things to be restored. And the measure aims to end alleged discrimination against digital asset firms and politically active individuals alike. So again, crypto has kind of been thrown in there as a political stance. So being a Bitcoin fan or an XRP fanboy has been perceived to be in the same bucket as someone who has a far fringe political ideology or something like this. And banks have sort of behaved in that manner, right? So moving crypto from one wallet to the other suddenly would trigger some kind of advanced KYC, at which point they'd come after you and take your house from you or something. I don't know what they've been doing. So this is how it began. For years, cryptocurrency companies have claimed that they were deliberately excluded from mainstream banking services. Specifically, they point to Operation Chokepoint 2.0. I made a video about this Chokepoint 2.0 a while back, and I think it's John Deaton that's been advocating for a thorough investigation to be carried out in the sort of CIA-like behavior of the banks in sabotaging personalities that deal in crypto, a term used by industry figures to describe banking practices under Biden administration. So the tension escalated under Biden, and industry leaders said that the measures stifled innovation and limited access to essential financial services, which kind of drew back the United States from the forefront of crypto innovation. And it went out to places like Portugal. You'd hear things happening in Korea, in Hong Kong, in Dubai, another place like in South Africa. In South Africa, there is a town in South Africa that accepts Bitcoin as legal tender. And they did it quietly with no fanfare. And it's not exactly official, but it's just the people in that community decided, you know what, we want to spend Bitcoin. And they just started doing it. So that's something that their government didn't get in the way of. They didn't have legislation to harass and stifle that innovation. Even if they did, they had, the critical mass of a small community that decided to do it, and they went along with that. In the United States, I don't think that would have been possible. They would have had the banks all over their case. People would have been arrested, yada, yada, yada. The Trump administration now seeks to reverse that trend, presenting itself as a defender of crypto interests. Central to this shift was ending the use of reputation risk in customer assessments, a policy that allowed banks to deny services based on possible public image issues. The reputation risk standard had given banks broad discretion to end relationships with certain industries, including companies in digital assets and cryptocurrency sector. Removing it reduces the discretion and signaled a more supportive regulatory stance towards digital assets. This change has led more industry figures to share their experiences openly, blah, blah, blah. So some personalities that this has affected was the CEO, Brian Armstrong, said that JP Morgan warned clients. Coinbase CEO, Brian Armstrong, said JP Morgan warned clients in 2023 it would close accounts linked to primary cryptocurrency income, right? So basically, imagine being banked by JP Morgan for years, decades even in some cases, and then you start making income from crypto, and then they said, oh, we're going to close your account because you're making income in crypto. This is kind of similar to what happened to me here in the UK, where they could see the money coming in from crypto exchanges, and all of a sudden it triggered some sort of KYC, which, I provided the stuff that I had, but they wanted a deep dive into every trade, which kind of breaches my own privacy. Because if I was working on, in McDonald's, whatever, right, I'd get my McDonald's pay. Right, if I was working on an hourly basis, no one's going to ask me for my actual pay sheets and hours worked and all that sort of stuff. They're fine with that. There is a discrimination based around crypto, because crypto has been solid with this idea that there's money laundering, there's some clandestine activity going on with crypto. And this is something that is across the Western world. It's not just the United States. Perhaps it's stronger in the United States, and at least the government over there is starting to make a move, right? And this aligns with all of the regulations that are happening, putting crypto in proper management underneath traditional financial licenses, which obviously Bitcoin maxis are going to absolutely hate, but this is what we need to achieve the mass adoption that we absolutely need for some of these cryptos to do what they really need to do. So there are penalties for people who do that after the executive order. The executive order itself is available to read, I believe. I haven't actually looked at the executive order. I've just read articles about it. If I find the executive order, I will also link that in the description. But happy days ahead. Lots of regulations happening. Shout out to XRP with a 64% chance of approval. That's what it's jumped to. It fell all the way down because of the postponement, but now it's back up to 64% thanks to the renewed information that we have from Paul Atkins, from crypto bouncing back, etc., etc. Not financial advice, your own research. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.